Hey guys, this is Ross with Hamilbro Studios, and I'm bringing you a tutorial today about sandwiches. No, not the kind of sandwiches that you get when you're expecting a hot meal after a really long day working on a production or a wedding. No. This is a sandwich that you could find useful. Maybe not, but here we are. So, what I've got here is just a shot that I took up in the living room. It's handheld, nothing special. I didn't light anything. This is just for the sake of example. But kind of a rough little deal here. But what we're gonna do is what I call the warp stabilizer sandwich. So if you've ever worked in After Effects, then you're probably familiar a little bit with warp stabilizer. Maybe not. But I discovered this a few weeks ago and thought I would share it with you because so far I've not seen anybody really address this. I've seen some tutorials that kind of go over it, but really aren't very helpful. So, yeah, let's see what kind of trouble we can get into. So, why am I doing this? Well, I was working on a short film for our good friend William Helmuth at Helmuth Arts. And I had a wide shot of two individuals, and the shot was handheld, and there was a lot of roto and some VFX stuff that needed to be slapped in, some, fire embers, some smoke, some things like that, that I needed to basically composite into the scene. And what I kept running into was using just my standard methods of planar tracking, things like that, rotoing. It was really, really difficult to get everything to stick like I needed because I felt like everything was working a little too hard. So, in comes Warp Stabilizer, which has done a pretty good job with this shot. One of the things that's going to cause us some trouble is these reflections in the pictures and paintings, but we're just going to ignore that for now. We're not going for perfection. This is more about the concept. So, one of the things that was really important in this film that I was working on was maintaining all of the handheld motion. Also didn't want to futz with 3D tracking on these particular shots because it was a waste of resources. And I discovered this method that helped me save a lot of time when it came to rotoing and motion tracking. So we've got our warp stabilizer here. It's already analyzed. It's done its thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to toggle this down, this advanced area. And instead of the objective being stabilized, we're going to go down to reversible stabilization. I did not know this was a thing until just a few weeks ago, but here we are. So what that does is that changes our result to no motion, and I think that's the only thing that it changes on the surface. So we scroll through, and it's done a pretty good job of minimizing the motion. Obviously, there's some 3D parallax and stuff in here that it's not going to get rid of, but alas, here we are. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, let's just jump right in. Let's say I want to stick some text on the wall. So I'm going to go up here to my text tool. And this is, I guess, the new properties window in After Effects. Is this 2023 or 2024? Yeah, 23.4. If you care. Personally, I find this a bit annoying, but I'm sure with time it will become useful some way. But for now, I'm just going to close that out. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here and let's just type a text. Yeah, getting real creative here. And I'm going to go up here and just scale my text down. Let's just make it some color that's not quite so hideous. Just stick that there. Font really doesn't matter for this. And now what I'm going to do is to help me stick this on the wall because you see there's still a little bit of warping and motion. Some of that I think is rolling shutter. This was shot on a Blackmagic Pocket 6K, the original. So there's a little bit of rolling shutter in here, not bad. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my text layer. I'm going to hit Control Space. And if you don't have Video Copilot's effects console, get it. The link is in the comments. It's free, so there's really no excuse. And so I'm going to hit Control Space to bring up my effects console. I'm going to use KingPin Tracker from Red Giant. Again, that is in the link for that's in the comments. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around this little photo here, and let's see if this actually works for us, because I had a little bit of trouble, like I said, with the reflections on this, but alas, here we are. So you can do this with Mocha. I find it a bit faster to use KingPin Tracker, but this is more, again, about the concept and less about all of these other tools. So this is more about the warp stabilizer. So I'm just going to go with what I think is the fastest. So I'm going to set my layer to track to be my footage layer down here. I'm going to set effects and masks. I'm going to track forward. And this is real time. Now, in full candor, I have down-resed this clip to 1080p just for the sake of speed here. But KingPin Tracker is still really stinking fast, and it looks like it's doing a pretty good job here of sticking to this photo. So hopefully we don't have any crazy jumps or anything. But one of the reasons that I like doing this method with the warp stabilizer is it takes a lot of the big motion out of these shots that can take your tracker extra time to work. And so now that that's tracked, go here, I'm going to hit the U key, and you see all my keyframes. Click out of that, and I'm just going to go down here, toggle down from pins, and copy from to pins. And what that's going to do is that's going to basically reposition our text exactly where it was. And so we have this as the result. Pretty good. You can see the text. Let me just dive in here a little bit. You can see the text moving just a little bit with the rest of the scene. I'd say that's pretty good. And so, great. You know, why couldn't we have just done that with the text as is? Well, like I said, the warp stabilizer helps take a lot of the big motion out and helps speed up the track a little bit. But this really isn't the main coolness here. So the other thing that I mentioned before was rotoing. All right, now we've got our text pretty well stuck to the wall. Again, we're not aiming for, total precision here. This is just to kind of get you kick started. But what I want to do is show you one of the bigger benefits. Now, I've trimmed my comp down to about 3 seconds and some change. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this comp, hit Command D. Duplicate this layer with Command D or Control D if you're on Windows. And I'm just going to right-click, pre-compose, move all attributes, and we're going to call this stabilized. Stabilized. Uncheck open new composition because I don't need it to open it. And now we still have this guy going on, so that's totally fine. And what I'm going to do is a couple of things. Let's just hit Control Space for the effects console, and we're going to go Mocha AE. If you have Mocha Pro, this will still work, but I don't have Mocha Pro, so here we go. What I'm going to do is open Mocha, and a lot of times if you're working in different resolutions, it'll throw up an error asking you to make sure and set your composition work resolution to full. I've already done that. Let's just scroll through and make sure. So right about there is where we run out of real estate on the couch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in here. Gonna get this. And if you're not familiar with Mocha, it's a really great planar tracker. And if you're not familiar with what that means, it basically will track a plane. So a 2D flat-ish surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this tracking data. And the name here is really irrelevant, but I'm going to go ahead and track this forward. Hopefully we don't get cut off. That's pretty good. I'm going to hit this back arrow to jump back to that last keyframe, and I'm going to track backwards. And this track is looking really solid. I'm really happy with it. And this is real time. So I've not sped this up at all. And again, that's one of the reasons that I really like using this warp stabilizer method. So we've got our track data. I'm going to go ahead and just lock that because I don't want to screw that up. And now we know, there we go. We've got all that tracked. So now let's get into the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and just go here. I'm just creating a rough mask here. I could probably go a lot more precise with it, but I don't need to. And then right click to close it. So you left click to create your points, and then you right click on, once you're done with your last point. And on layer 2, I'm going to call this sofa back right. And here, link to track, I'm just going to link this to the tracking data. So there's really nothing that we need to do here. And as you can see, for roto purposes, that is really stinking good. It's stuck there. And I can also run these edges off the edge of the screen because it is linked to track data that is all in the screen. So very, very helpful. So I'm going to do the same thing again. And I'm just going to start here, creating another X-spline. I can't remember how big my text was, so I'm just going to keep going out over here until I'm fairly certain that we're done. Go off screen there. That way we have plenty of real estate off there. Oops, I'm going to Command Z, undo that, and now I've got my last one. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to probably tighten this up just a scotch. Bring this down, drag that handle in a little bit. Again, I'm not going for just super precise. I don't really care for the sake of this example. Now, you can get very, very detailed. Ideally, you'll be using a very well-lit scene. And like the couch would have a better edge lit to it. But again, I'm going to link this to tracking data, and I'm going to call this sofa back left. Sorry, I got the hiccups. Apparently I'm allergic to Mocha. That would be horrible, actually. And so I'm going to save this, clicking that down arrow, that's a save, and close out Mocha. Mocha is starting. And I am going to go Layer, New, Null Object. I'm going to call this Tracking Data. And to edit the text, you just hit the Enter key on your selected layer, and it brings up the text dialog. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command T. That's going to open up my text tool. Just going to go right in here and type couch. And hit my number pad enter key to get out of that. I'm going to hit my V key to go back into my selection tool. And I'm going to hit S to scale this up. I'm going to drag this down. And it's not masked out. I know. It's fine. So what I'm going to do is layer, new, solid, and we're just going to call this matte. Not like Matthew, but like a garbage mat. And we're just going to turn that layer off because we don't need it. And I'm going to go back into, click on our stabilized layer, and I'm going to rotate this down. And I am going to all visible layers. I'm actually going to select this and I'm going to turn off the tracking data. And that's set to all visible. Feather, we don't really need to feather it right this second. So I'm going to create AE masks. And it's a little, it's kind of off, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit M, open up these masks, Command C. I'm going to go to my matte layer, Command V, paste them on my matte. And again, they're off. But what we're going to do this time is I'm going to hit V, go back to my, oops, that was the wrong layer. Going to go back to my warp stabilizer. They stabilized. That's the one I want. And let's see, did I already paste these? Yes, I did. Okay. My bad. Sorry. You just have to bear with me a little bit here. And Matt, I'm going to turn this on so I can see better. Maybe it will stop grabbing the background layer because I don't want that. One of my favorite things about After Effects is when it doesn't cooperate. So I'm going to zoom in here again, and I'm just going to try to drag this into place. It's pretty well on. Yes, I missed a little bit there, but that's not really the point. Okay, now our matte layer's turned off. I'm going to deselect that. The stabilized one, I'm just going to hit, right click this, and let's just turn this on as a guide layer. That way it doesn't render out. If you're not familiar with guide layers, super helpful. I love them. Basically what it does is it makes After Effects ignore this layer when it's rendering, but it still gives you a visual reference. So turn this one off just to be safe. And now I've got couch here. We're going to turn that back on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this pick whip. This is our track mat pick whip there. And it's set as an alpha mat, which is what I want. And I'm going to click here to invert it. And now the couch text is floating in the scene. And our couch parts are actually rotoed out of it, which is super helpful. So I'm going to go in here, just going to hit MMM. There we go. I'm going to select both masks. I'm just going to add just a touch of feather for the sake of example, like 6 pixels. Looks like it'll be fine. Then there we go. So now we get to the last step, which is one of the main reasons that this is so effective, because you see, we got the black bars, we got, you know, everything kind of dancing around the scene, not very helpful. But here we are. And well, I don't know. What do you think? Should we? Nah, I like the couch floating in front. So we could actually go to our stabilized and then create tracking data from here. And just go here. Okay. And we've got our tracking data null, so I could select this and apply. Actually, nope, we want to go transform first. There we go. No corner pin. And then apply export. And you'll see that this kind of moves with it. And if I wanted, I could take my couch text and grab this pick whip, which is the parent pick whip, drag it down. And now the word is going to follow the couch. But I don't want to do that because I think the couch moving in front looks a lot cooler. So I digress. So what I'm going to do is go Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, make sure that's the top. And we're going to call this Reversed. I'm just calling it that for organizational purposes. There's no inherent value in naming that except for when you're cracking your project open later and you need it. We're going to go down here. This is our stabilized layer. I'm going to select Warp Stabilizer, hit Command C or Control C if you're on Windows. And I'm going to Command V or Control V, and crap, gives us an error. Actually, I knew that was going to happen. So that was just a dramatic reaction to make this more interesting. So what it does is it brings all of our data over from this bottom layer. It's copied. Everything is still the exact same, but what we're going to do is in our objective, we're going to hit that drop down and reverse stabilization. And what that does is it basically snaps everything back into position. But since it's over all of these other layers, it's going to reverse warp them where they stick in to the scene. So what we've got here is it looks like our couch text is stuck almost to this table. And so I'm just going to hit 0 on my number pad and let this do a RAM preview. And this is in real time. So I've not sped anything in this tutorial up. Only edits I've made were when I screwed something up and needed to take them out. But what you see here is now, here, let me just do this, fit up to, I'm just going to hit my tilde key and open this up full screen so you can still see it. And now you see that everything has been tracked into this scene, and the roto on the couch was super simple. And again, I could have rotoed that without stabilizing it using Mocha, but I know that when I pre-composed the warp stabilizer into it and then opened Mocha over the top of it, it made the amount of motion at the bottom a lot less. And so there was a lot less calculating that Mocha had to do or KingPin Tracker had to do. And now we've got these layers that are integrated into the scene. We've got our text on the wall. We've got our couch text that's stuck back there. And we've got the couch itself moving in front of it. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, but if you've got a handheld shot that you need to do some roto on, you need to do some compositing on, then this could help save you a ton of time. And I know for sure it did on mine. Hopefully this short film will come out sometime soon. It's gonna make its rounds in the festivals first, but I would love to be able to come back to this at some point. I don't know if I will, but lofty goals. But anyway, that is the finished shot. You watched me build it completely from scratch. And that's the way this cookie crumbles. Just watched Bruce Almighty. So yeah, that's where we're at. But one thing I would caution you on is this is really not a good shot to do this on, because these reflections in the glass made this a lot more difficult. I thought about replacing this picture here, but I couldn't because the reflections were causing tracking issues. I could have spent a lot of time fixing that, but I didn't want to because I didn't want to. But you see how this works. We've got all this in here and it all works. So the only thing that you might want to do, We'll go ahead and hit spacebar to stop that. Hit my tilde key to go back. You could add motion blur to these. This text layer with KingPin tracker adds a little bit, but that's one of the downsides to this, is if you have a lot of motion, anything underneath your reverse layer is not going to look right as far as the motion blur goes. So I would suggest you can just add a new adjustment layer. We'll call this, if I can type correctly, motion blur. And I'm really a huge fan of RSMB, which is Real Smart Motion Blur from Revision Effects. It's a great plugin. And what that's going to do is that's just going to add motion blur to everything and kind of tie it all together. So let's just hit the 0 key. This is going to take a little longer. I'm not going to render this whole thing, but let's just see. So it got a little bit of motion blur in there. So if we look, yeah, you can see it really good there. So the RSMB adds the motion blur. Unfortunately, it does add motion blur to everything underneath, but if you only wanted to add it to the text, then what I would do is basically this would be a pre-comp. I would pre-compose. Actually, let's just do that. So I'm going to pre-compose everything except for my base layer. And I'm going to layer, pre-compose, move all attributes. This is text only. Click that, and everything will work. So first I got to turn off my warp stabilizer here because now we don't need it because we've already got all that data in the pre-comp. And now the motion blur is only going to affect the text. So let's, that's not really what I wanted. Zoom in again. And there we go. So we've got our motion blur added in. And it's not affecting the rest of the scene with its natural motion blur. So yeah, I know this has been a little bit of a lengthy tutorial, but I really wanted to just make sure that all the concepts were there. And yeah, it's going to be a huge time saver, hopefully, for a lot of you out there, just because you stabilize once and it really minimizes the amount of time it takes to do your motion tracking, at least in a 2D space. I haven't tried this with the 3D tracker. I might do that someday. I don't know. I don't know that would actually work very well just because of the warp in it. I imagine the tracking points would kind of freak out, but as far as a good 2D compositing tracking solution that will help, especially when it comes to rotoing and minimizing the amount of big keyframes you have to move, this is definitely a good way to go. I've used this, like I said, short film that's hitting some festivals, and it's a very, very effective tool. And all you have to do is use your warp stabilizer with reversible stabilization, and then at the top you add an adjustment layer, copy that effect, and then change it to reverse stabilization. And that is why I call it the warp stabilizer sandwich. So go enjoy this sandwich much more than you would any other sandwich. And again, this is Ross with Hamel Bros Studios, and I look forward to seeing you next time.